Hey YouTube, in today's video, we're going to cover a pretty interesting cryptocurrency that's been around for a few years, but has rocket shipped in price recently and has got some really exciting partnerships. See, they're trying to upset the world, or at least augment the world of cloud computing, which if you haven't been in that world, it's really expensive. I can tell you from the companies that I've run, we have spent anywhere from $20,000 to $100,000 a month just as a young startup trying to grow our platform. And so cloud computing is something that's super expensive. And I've always thought that blockchain is a perfect place to upset that industry and really give us new options and abilities. But there's challenges along the way to solve it. So in today's video, we are going to talk about iExec. iExec is really interesting. It's a very, very innovative crypto. We're going to cover my thoughts on it. We're going to cover where I think it might go and why it has potential to be an awesome investment for you and for me. Want to know more? You're in the right place, my friends. All this and so much more coming right up. All right there. Hey, YouTube, it's Wes. So glad you guys are with me again today. We're talking iExec, and this is a pretty fun and interesting crypto. The price is kind of interesting. It's kind of done some wild things of late, and there are reasons for it. We'll get to that later. But what I wanted to start with first is this. Hey, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Wes Spencer. I'm a technologist. I am an entrepreneur. And when I have time, I love to jump into crypto, startups, entrepreneurialism, all that awesome stuff here in my channel. So welcome. If you'd hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be updated with new stuff. And if you like the video, hit that like button too. It does go a long way. All right, cool. So let's just jump right in. And here is iExec right here. Again, everything is that I cover today will be in the description down below, all the good links, all that good stuff. So they're calling themselves the first decentralized marketplace for cloud resources. And you might be like, time out. I know others that have been doing this for a while or recently. And you'd be right. There are others that are doing this. They have competition, but they've been doing this since 2016, if I remember correctly, at least the inception of the company. So they've been at this for a really long time. Now, on one hand, you could look at that and be like, well, it's taken them this long, and finally you've got a YouTube video like me covering this. It must be really slow and they don't know what they're doing. Or you could say they've been baking this for a really long time and building towards adoption. It doesn't matter which direction you pick. They've been doing this for a long time. They are a true company with real employees, with good funding, all of that stuff in place. So I'm more in the category of, I don't mind that it's taken some time, because what they're trying to solve for is super complex. It's not just like a burn token. You slap a ERC20 token or a BEP20 contract up overnight and off you go. This is much more difficult. So you can hit this play introduction video if you want to kind of see more about just the introduction, what they're trying to solve for. But here's the high level of what they're really trying to fix. So as I mentioned in the intro, cloud computing is really expensive, right? I mean, there's no question about that. It's not easy to get into. AWS, Google Compute, Azure, all of these major cloud platforms are really expensive. And so they're trying to upset that. And of course, we're in an age in which, you know, they cover use cases like medical device data, training sets for artificial intelligence, all of these like big data stores that are happening for, you know, all kinds of big data cloud platforms. All that is ripe for disruption. And they're not incorrect about any of those things. Those are all things that iExec could absolutely solve for. So I'm going to skip by this. This is kind of neat. They're apply for funding. So they're in a stage now where there's some maturity around both the token and the technology. And so now, because they're well funded, they have the ability to sort of like kick off. And this is smart, by the way, to kick off some accelerators to kind of get people going to say, hey, I've got an idea that I could use to build on iExec, and they're going to give you some funding to get there. Now, the reason this is super cool, and I'm going to come back to this in a bit more later, this isn't really a negative, it's just a reality. The truth is, iExec is still really new in terms of what they're trying to do. And there's not a ton of usage in the platform yet. Does that mean that it's not going to work and not going to take off? No, it just means as they're pursuing towards product market fit, which is, as an investor, that's something we call, is there a solution here that the market really wants to buy? It's more complex than that, but that's the easiest way I can simplify for this video. They're not quite there yet, in my opinion. And I'll show that to you in a minute. So their whole apply for funding is a brilliant way to get additional usage and experimentation from other innovators to use the iExec platform. Now, I will show this in a bit too. Developers, providers, token holders, they have some really good information here from just a documentation and use case and how to and read more. They've got like all of this in spades. I'm really excited about this. I'll come back to some of these in just a minute. We can hit learn more on the token itself, which I'm going to do as well. And then some additional stuff down here as far as the products and where they want to go, like their dApp store, how the SDK works, all of that. So the first thing let's do is let's click here and let's learn more about the token itself. So here we are. This is all the information you need to know about the token. It's called RLC. So it's not like iExec or something you might think. It's called RLC. You can click here on how to buy it. We'll come back to that in much later in the video. You can see what it is. It's a cryptocurrency that's used. Think of this as like a token that's used to authenticate and pay for activity in the iExec blockchain. So more on that in just a minute. We'll come to use cases and how all this works in a minute. Simple to use. It is ERC20, which for the good and bad of Ethereum right now, it would make sense that it's that way. 83 million are in circulation, and we'll come back to tokenomics as well. You can see it's trading around $4.72 right now, market cap of $336 million. So very easy to get the high level understanding of the tokens. But what I haven't done yet, at least not at any high levels, kind of talked about what or how iExec actually works. So let's do that. Right here is their developer platform. And the way you get to that, by the way, let me go back to this. You just click right here under developers. You click on learn more, and you don't have to be a developer. This is just a bunch of like sample videos and like, how to get started stuff, technical documentation. Pretty easy to get through all of this. And so I'm a big fan of this. They've got a lot of really good documentation here that can be really helpful. And what I want to start with is just how iExec works. And this is one of their demo pages. And it's really, really nice. So I'm going to walk you through this whole platform. So keep in mind, when you talk about things like AWS or Google Compute and you're paying for storage, you're basically just paying for access into the huge data farms that Google or Amazon or others happen to own. And while it's super easy, a couple clicks and you have what you need, and it's very simple. You don't have to mess with like standing up physical devices and power consumption and all that. Two things: you're going to pay out the nose for it. And two, you lose the freedom, right? We're giving all of our data to one of the two big boys. And you guys know I'm a cybersecurity guy, right? I'm a practicing CISO. I'm a chief information security officer by trade. And those things always worry me and scare me a little bit. Just from a data privacy, how much stuff are we actually centralizing back into these cloud platforms? When you look at the journey of technology, it was very distributed, and then we centralized into mainframes. And then in the 90s, we really went back into like personal computing. And that was really awesome for a really long time. And individual servers, very, very decentralized. And then cloud computing pushed us back into a centralized architecture. Have you thought through that before? We went decentralized, centralized, decentralized, centralized. And that's where we're at right now with cloud. And it's both good and risky. So this is iExec's way of kind of upsetting all of that. And so let's talk quickly about how all of this works. So over here on the left, you have your own private data, right? I, as a company, let's call myself a healthcare company. I have some private data that is regulated. And so I need to make sure I can share it, but I have to share it in anonymized ways, et cetera, et cetera. So I need to process it and crunch it. Let's say we're going to use it for, calculating diagnosis data through artificial intelligence. There we go. And so what would happen is specific pieces of this data that I write as the developer would go into this key management service. And this is a lot like the NewCipher that I just covered before. In fact, I could see NewCipher working alongside iExec for sure. And what would happen in the key management service is it would encrypt the data in certain ways that certain applications or platforms could read certain parts of it. So it's just this key management thing that says, hey, I'm going to let you see this part, you see this part, no one else can see this, I'm going to revoke this. It handles all of those things. Then what happens is it transfers to this area, this confidential computing, right? And this is really where iExec kind of jumps in place. And they call this the trusted execution environment. This is the area where the data is kind of crunched and processed. They call it like a digital safe, where it's all being stored and processed. And then what we have over here is we're doing something with it. So maybe I'm paying through a decentralized app inside of iExec to actually use an AI algorithm that's going to crunch that data. And what does the AI algorithm need? Well, it needs access to the medical data, but it needs to be anonymized. It doesn't need to see patient information. It just needs to see the raw diagnosis data. to be able to crunch in its algorithm. And so that's what this is particularly doing. And what's so neat about this is not only can we give certain parts to be seen and not seen through encryption with iExec, but we can also make sure whoever's processing it, because it's decentralized, can see none of it. Think about that, none of it. So I might be sitting on this computer right here that you're watching, and I'm serving as a node, and I am inside of the iExec process, and I'm processing this data, and I can't see any of it. That is pretty innovative and pretty cool. And in fact, that's the only way a decentralized manner would work, right? Is like, hey, I may be processing pieces of data. I have no idea what's going on. And it's the only way the process will actually work in functionality to draw users. So one quick question that probably comes to mind from you is, well, why the heck would I want to do this as a user? Why would I want to process this with my own equipment? Well, it's kind of obvious. You're going to earn RLC tokens. So you're going to make money out of this. So that's how the incentivization model works. Is the only way people like you and I would want to do this is if I get some incentivization out of it, I can make RLC from it. Yeah, sign me up. This is very similar to I covered Chia before, and Chia is all about using extra data space on your hard drives to be able to earn. This is about using, extra computing space that you and I, no doubt, we have access to. So how do you get started in this? Here's their quick start guide. I'm not going to go through this, but I will put a link, of course, so you can kind of see how all this works. They recommend doing this through a virtual machine, and I think that makes sense because you can't control everything the virtual machine is going to be processing. And so could you just do this on your own machine? Of course you could. But a VM is much smarter because a VM will let you separate out what's being processed inside of the actual VM, and it's not, it's separated from your computer itself. And so they recommend using virtual, I think VirtualBox is what they use. It's an open source one created by Java. There's a bunch of them that are out there, but this guide will walk you through it. They even have a YouTube video that makes it pretty simple. And then what you're going to do is you're going to connect to some pools. And here are the iExec worker pools. The one you'd probably use would be mainnet or perhaps enterprise. And so if I click on these, you can actually see some information here about the pool. You can see a description for it. And then I can click on see more. And this is where it gets kind of neat. I can bring this up and it should, if I wait and we be patient, there we go. And that's kind of empty. Not much going on here. Only one active worker, 8 CPUs. That's not so good. Let's go check another pool real quick and just see if it's just me or I'm using the wrong pool. Okay, so there's not much more here either. So no big deal. You can see it's just not heavily used right now. And again, I don't think that's a huge detriment. It's just because we're trying some new things out and they really do need traction. So I'm going to skip by the quick start, and I do want to show you the Explorer. So if you want to look through and just see historically what's happened, what's been completed and claimed, and what's out there, what's been transacted, what latest apps are out there, it's all right here. And again, going back to what I just mentioned, look at this down here. There's only 6 apps that have been deployed within the past year. A couple Hello Worlds, whatever Ringleader is. There's just not a lot of stuff here. And so what does this tell me as a practitioner? It tells me, well, the technology's here, and we need more people to see this and start using it. And really, we need to see adoption to get towards product market fit because we're just not there yet. So here's the marketplace where I have actually added my account. And so now that I've set this up, it's through MetaMask, is the way I did it anyway. So you can actually see a little bit more data here. You can see how you could actually fill market orders here. You would need your DApp address, all of that, placing limit orders. You can see how you can actually set out your sizes. So, hey, I need to set up one that's going to be a medium size. And I would need to do a little bit more research to see the actual tiers. This strikes me as very much like AWS. They have different tiers, like an S3 large, S2 small, whatever it may be. But this is the marketplace where you would actually do your buying and selling and filling, all of that stuff here as well. So there you have it. There's kind of a coverage of the tech of iExec, and again, I think it's really interesting. I can tell you, having looked at it, it's solid. It's usable. I've seen some of their demos of using a robotic piece of hardware that walks around the floor and uses iExec to process what it sees, so the AI algorithm knows to steer the robot. We've definitely got use cases that are out there. We just, as you can see, we don't have adoption. We definitely need, and this is probably a better place to show. There we go. We don't have much adoption. We need more of this, and so. I would love to see more people jump in and use this. And you could think of this as an investor of hey, man, this could really be, if this gets adoption, I'm really getting in on this super, super early. The next question you probably are wondering is, well, is there going to be adoption at all, right? And so there's some data that proves or indicates, is probably a better way to say it, maybe. So this is some price prediction stuff. And you guys know on my channel, I don't do price prediction. Never listen to YouTubers on price prediction. They don't know what they're talking about. They're guessing, they're speculating just like you and I. If you're going to listen to a YouTuber, you're probably going to go bankrupt. So be careful on those things. But you see some data here around this. But more than that, I think this article from Cointelegraph is really interesting. So they're talking about why it rallied 400%. And obviously it's because within a slew of a month, they had a whole bunch of big name listings like Coinbase. And those things tend to rocket ship the price of a crypto up. But there's more to it than just that. One of the things that's pretty exciting about what they're doing is the partnerships. They've got a lot of partnerships with other blockchain tech. They've got some partnerships with Google, which I think is really, really interesting. They're inside of Google's innovation kind of labs for some of the cloud stuff that they're doing. And so to me, seeing iExec really pursue partnerships is where the potential in future can come. Because if I have the underlying technology, right, like iExec does, the next thing I need is users to use it. Well, where do I find those? I can go build them myself by reaching out to others and do marketing, which is what they need to do a lot more of. Or another way I could do it, or I really shouldn't say or, I should say and. And another way that I could do it is through partnerships and finding great platforms that have the ability to send users in through that partnership. And so I'm definitely really excited about that. Another thing is I did want to show their audit. So this is from Consensus. Consensus is super well known. I covered them in my audit token video where I kind of talk about how audits work. There's nothing super concerning about this. A few medium events or vulnerabilities that came up, they've all been handled pretty well with a good description of either being solved or a good plan for them to be solved. So I'll skip by this, but I will put a link in it if you want to go read up more on the audit itself. And then the last thing I want to do is just talk about price history and do some quick analysis. So this guy's trading at around $4.60 right now. It has gone up a little bit, but again, it's just moving kind of with the market. We've talked about market cap here, 373 million, fully diluted, not much more. And the reason for that is because pretty much all RLC is already out there in circulation, at least as far as I'm aware from what I've been reading. So that's good to see. It's definitely a sub $1 billion market cap. I like those. You guys know the way I look at this is if it's a sub $1 million market cap, it's super, super early. And there's just, it's really risky. Here, we're looking at something that because it's not even at 1 billion, there's definitely no product market fit. We're looking to get there. We're looking to get more users. And so if this is one you believe in, would definitely be a good early investment time now. If you don't believe in it and don't think it's going to go anywhere, clearly not, right? And so if we take a look at where it's trended, for the longest time, it did see this little peak right here in January, again, correlating with when Bitcoin, everything, boomed during that time. So we can skip by that $2 range. And, it's been trading, sub $1 for a really long time. And then here's where it hit these 400% gains. Went as high as, if I remember right, about $18. It says 12 there. But I think if we go to like a 1 month view, we'll see this. So we're still way, way, way off from its high, like a third of what it really was. The volume has really dropped down again, and we're seeing this across the board. So nothing staggering to see low trading volume right now. But looking at this, it's good to see this. You always see this with cryptos when it gets major exchange listings like Coinbase. You'll see it blow up to the stratosphere and then come back down over time. And so traditionally now is a good time to buy. I always tell people wait about a month after a major listing for any crypto before you go and buy normally, because you see these things happen. And so I like this. I'm really interested to see where this whole thing goes. I think the idea of what it's trying to solve for is really awesome. They've had this around for many, many years. So the technology has been baking, it's been cooking along. I think it really does have a ton of potential. We just need to see more users. We need to see better marketing. I don't see iExec in the news streams often enough. I don't think they're being out leading in front. They've got great technology, great descriptions of how to use it, a solid website, good use cases in terms of what's theoretically possible, and good partnerships coming out along the way. They just need more marketing. They need more what we call go to market. How do we get this thing out there and get people to see it? And so I saw this and it captured me. I thought you guys may be interested in it as well because of how new it is and how little traction it's got. So give me some comments. I'd love to know what you think about iExec. Do you think this one's going somewhere? Does it have any potential, or is this thing going to crash and burn? I'd love to know what you guys think. And hey, while you're here, I asked you at the beginning of the video, would you hit like and hit subscribe? It goes a long way for the channel, especially just to get the algorithm going and sharing this video out everywhere. And also, if you're new here, hit the bell icon. This is a great way to stay in touch with the fresh content I've coming out with all the time. And I'd love to know what you guys think about this video and other content you guys would like for me to carry. All right, guys, thanks so much.